Designing vehicles for a younger consumer demographic comes with many risks. We have seen time and time again manufacturers building subcompact crossovers that are boxy, that are youthful in design, that are a bit more tech focused, and they fall flat on their faces. And Nissan learned this the hard way for the first generation Nissan Kicks, which was basically a lifted hatchback. Before 2025, we have a true subcompact crossover that's not just fun in design, but actually quite useful for a vehicle under $30,000 to start. And in today's video, we're going to check out what the Nissan Kicks SR has to offer, see how it compares to its closest rivals, and also see why, if you are looking at buying an affordable daily driver for you or your family, maybe taking a look at the Nissan Kicks SR might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Nissan of Merrimack Valley in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, for letting me come down here to check out the Nissan Kicks once again. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Nissan inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2025 Nissan Kicks SR we have today, our model has all-wheel drive, giving us a starting cost of just over $27,500. Now, I do want to caution you though, because with optional packages and equipment, you'll be spending over 30 grand. So maybe the SV will make a bit more sense. However, if you're someone looking for a fun-looking subcompact crossover, I think the Kicks wins out at the end of the day in this market for that. Just take a look at its styling, the yellow paint color, the two-tone look. This is actually quite appealing in this segment, at least in my opinion. Now, as you can tell though, not only are you going to have the two-tone look, but there's also going to be aggressive cladding for the side profile and front and rear bumpers, mostly because compared to last generation, this is no longer a lifted hatchback. They lengthened it, widened it, and you now have 8.4 inches of ground clearance. So pair that with the all-wheel drive system, this could be providing a lot of value on a daily basis throughout the year. Design-wise though, as you can tell, it does look a bit more sleek here with the gloss black trim. And also you are going to receive full LED headlights up front with LED fog lights. So you can have better visibility at night or in adverse weather conditions. For that front grille, you will have gloss black trim there, giving you that sleek and pretty cool look here for our model, and there will be the SR badge. For the lower portion of the front bumper, once again, you're going to notice the aggressive cladding, which is going to be perfect if you are taking on some of the elements. It will deflect the road salt or debris that you will be encountering throughout the year. Then as you make your way over to the side profile, you are going to have 19-inch alloy wheels. Now, for a subcompact crossover in this market, considering its size and weight, the 19-inch wheels might create a bit of road noise here. We're going to find this out later on during the test drive, but this might not be the most ideal choice if you're looking for a quiet daily driver for you and your family. Now, we are going to have the gloss black roof here, and that will match up with the gloss black side mirror caps with turn signal indicators, and we are going to have blind spot detection for added safety, so that's really great to see. Then as you make your way around to the back, you're going to have that futuristic design like we saw with the SV, the LED taillights, and the squared off bylines here makes it look really cutting edge and sleek, and in a way is taking some styling elements from the Nissan Juke that I wouldn't say it replaces, but it's kind of one of those vehicles where you could blur the lines a bit there. And I hope that at some point in the future, we get a better engine under the hood for this model, making it even more enthusiast focused. Now, you are going to notice the aggressive cladding once again that makes its way into the taillights. There's going to be more gloss black trim for the rear fascia as well. And better yet, you are going to have a color matched rear diffuser. Love to see that for this model. Nissan is focusing on the smaller details here, finally, for their affordable vehicles. And then to round out the final third of this model, you will have that visible exhaust outlet. But really though, for 2025, for a subcompact in kind of a stale market, this is something quite unique, and more importantly, giving you exactly what you want out of a crossover in this segment. Its size, its practicality, its ground clearance is going to give you a lot of versatility here for 2025. Powering the Nissan Kicks we have today is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, producing 141 horsepower and 140 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with a CVT. This is not going to be the most powerful in its segments. However, with this engine, as we've experienced with the SV, It is quite potent, and it will give you a good amount of performance on the low end. It's really all you're asking for out of a subcompact crossover such as this. But really though, for the Kicks, and more specifically for this generation, is the fact that it is quite flexible and versatile, that you can go with all-wheel drive, and on top of that, you have 8.4 inches of ground clearance. That is huge. It's very competitive with the Subaru Crosstrek. Now also, we're going to talk about that practicality later on in today's video that I think makes this vehicle a great all-around daily driver, especially if you live in the city. Now, aside from the performance, it's going to come down to that fuel economy, which I think is probably more important here for a subcompact in this segment and for its price point. By going with the Kicks with all-wheel drive, you're going to receive 27 miles per gallon in the city and 34 miles per gallon on the highway. That is really not bad for a vehicle with a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine that also doesn't offer a hybrid here. So again, this vehicle is quite flexible, it's efficient, it's affordable, it's practical, it's going to get the job done more importantly. Hopping inside the 2025 Nissan Kicks SR, you're greeted by leatherette seats for both the driver and passenger, and both sides are manually adjustable. What is a bit of a surprise here is that heated seat functionality does not come standard, and in fact it does require an optional package. Let's dive right into that package. So for $1,950 to the SR Premium package, you are going to receive a panoramic moonroof, heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, remote engine start system with intelligent climate control, rain sensing windshield wipers, and then the 10-speaker Bose Personal Plus audio system to amplify the audio of your favorite music. Now with this package included, and if you go with all-wheel drive, you're spending over $30,000. And I know a lot of you are going to be complaining and concerned about, oh, I don't want to go over $30,000. But if you're looking for a well-equipped Kicks and you also want a vehicle that will be conducive if you do live in colder regions of the US, this package is essential. Now with the leatherette seat material, there's a lot of bolstering here. There's a lot of grip too. You can tell it's supposed to be fun, youthful, and a bit more sports oriented, despite the fact that we have the exact same engine under the hood across all three trims. So I think with this vehicle, yes, it does feel a bit more premium since it is the top trim for 2025, but I still remind you that if you're looking for a luxurious experience, you're gonna have to go with the Nissan Rogue. Now the big difference here between the SV and the SR is that in front of you will be a full digital gauge cluster. Now I thought that what Nissan did with the SV was admirable, but then from far away it's like, this kind of looks a bit cheap here. But with the SR, you have a full digital gauge cluster, which functions very much like every other digital gauge cluster we see in the Nissan product line. Now, it's not going to be as in-depth, it's not going to be as intuitive. However, you can scroll through a variety of information, such as you have a home screen here, your fuel economy statistics, your tire pressure monitoring system, your radio, then of course your safety systems for blind spot detection, forward collision warning, and lane departure warning. And then lastly, of course, will be your vehicle settings tab, which then opens up a lot of sub-menus here for VDC setting, driver assistance, eco mode setting, tire pressure monitoring system setting, clock, and vehicle settings. You can scroll through all this on your own time and at your own discretion. But I will say that at least for a first impression, hopping into an SR over an SV, this is a huge improvement here. And really don't really see this in the subcompact crossover market where the technology does seem quite premium. So I like to see that here for Nissan's most affordable vehicle, or affordable crossover, I should say, in the lineup. Now taking a look at the infotainment system, this is Nissan's new technology here, which is a huge upgrade over last generation and what's found in a Nissan Rogue SV. Now this isn't going to have Google built-in software, so keep all of this in mind. You'll have to go with that Nissan Rogue. However, the functionality pretty much is the exact same. On the left side of the screen will be quick access icons for your home screen, your radio, your Bluetooth and wireless phone connectivity, and then also, of course, your climate control. So from here, no dual zone climate control, but you can adjust the fan speed, fan direction, and also your temperature as well. What is interesting though is that you will have haptic feedback buttons on the dashboard doing the exact same thing and having the exact same functionality. So there is some dual functionality there with the new technology for the Nissan Kicks. I will say that the resolution and quality is really good. This is very much on par with the Honda HR-V, Toyota Corolla Cross, and Subaru Crosstrek. So if technology is what you're focusing on here for your subcompact crossover, the Nissan Kicks might actually surprise you there in that regard. Now in place placing the Nissan Kicks in reverse, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory. But what is interesting though, you are going to have a top view as well. That is fantastic and so rare to find in this market. So if you are backing out tight spots in a garage or on a city street, you have plenty of visibility here for this vehicle. Continuing on, just beneath the dashboard, you are going to notice this carbon fiber inlay, but it's not carbon fiber, it is cloth, and it's nice soft touch materials here, which does add some quality to the interior of this vehicle. Beneath that, you will find a physical dial for the volume. You will have the buttons for the tuning, your camera systems, and then your hazards. Beneath that, like I said before, your climate control settings from here, which is great to see. And then for the center console itself, you have two USB-C inputs, a wireless phone charging pad, an electronic parking brake, an auto vehicle hold, your start-stop button, then of course your drive mode selector. So from here you have Sport, Standard, Eco, and Snow. I think Sport mode actually pairs up very well with this little vehicle. Now, one thing I really like here about the Kicks, and again, this tells you that the Kicks is supposed to be a more youthful vehicle. You have orange accents here on the center console. I love to see that. Also, no gloss black trim either, so a lot of you are going to appreciate that. You're going to have two very deep cup holders here, which can store smaller items, larger drinks. That gives you a lot of flexibility up front. And you will have a center storage compartment, which is deep enough for some smaller items, maybe a couple wallets or smartphones, and there will be a 12-volt outlet. And then to round out the front seating area, again, optional is that moonroof, which will bring in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now for passengers in the second row, they're going to receive right around 34.5 inches of legroom, which is pretty standard for a vehicle in this market. It's also somewhat car-like with the interior dimensions. I will say though, that with the Kicks, it is wide enough where I think you can try squeezing in a third person in the center, which some vehicles are not going to offer the same. Also with the Kicks, you have a higher roof line, so I do think you can have taller passengers sit back here and they won't be hitting their head on the headliner. That's pretty big. Now also with the shoulder room, there's plenty of it as well, and it does feel rather spacious, at least in regards to its width. Now legroom wise, obviously tall passengers might feel a bit cramped or claustrophobic, but for a smaller family, this could most certainly work. Now in regards to amenities, you're not expecting to receive all the bells and whistles here. No center mounted air vents for the second row, but you will have two USB-C inputs. And then to round out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with two cup holders. Now making our way around to the back one more time to take a look at the rear cargo area. Surprisingly, with the SR, you are not going to receive a power liftgate. We need one in the future. But I can overlook that though today, because with the Nissan Kicks, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right on 30 cubic feet of room. This is far from being a lifted hatchback. 30 cubic feet of room is better than some compact crossovers out there, just to put that into perspective. If you are going on a road trip with a family or a significant other, you can easily store 8, 9, 10 bags of luggage back here. And on top of this, you have deep side pockets for some smaller items, maybe a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. But it does get even better than this, because when you lower the second row seats, you're looking at right on 60 cubic feet of room. This outclasses many subcompact crossovers. So if you're looking for a family-friendly subcompact crossover that's around $30,000 or even below that with an SV, I think you're going to find a lot of value here with this model, which is why I think that compared to last generation, this is a huge improvement in more ways than one, and it's the intangibles that will have you coming back for more. Once again, we are revisiting the 2025 Nissan Kicks, this time the SR. Driving perspective wise, a lot does carry over from the SV, so you're not going to experience a sportier, youthful, or even a more engaging crossover with the SR, although it does look cooler, and I had to choose the most obnoxious color available from Nissan to draw you in with that thumbnail. But I really do like what this subcompact crossover is offering from a fundamentals perspective, because a lot of subcompacts are quite small, they're lifted hatchbacks, and they're not necessarily the most family friendly. When you're looking at the cargo dimensions for this vehicle, close to 30 cubic feet, that's compact crossover territory. If you don't want to spend $35,000 or $40,000 on your next daily driver, maybe with a Nissan Rogue, the Kicks is a great alternative. Now obviously you are sacrificing performance here. You're looking at 141 horsepower, 140 pound-feet of torque, and this CVT. But I think it's more than enough here for city driving and also if you do live in the suburbs. Although this engine does seem quite competent and willing to get up to speed in a safe manner. A lot of subcompacts that are naturally aspirated are quite slow, but I find this vehicle has a decent amount of low-end torque and also mid-range power where you can pass slower drivers with ease. When you are on the back roads, when you're taking on the corners and the sharp handling, it does have somewhat of a lower center of gravity. It is somewhat athletic here, and also I do like the fact that you have a decently weighted steering. Combining all this together, you have a fun, affordable daily driver. But I think Nissan really knocked it out of the park with this crossover, especially compared to last generation, where one, they really upsized it quite a bit to make it versatile and conducive for American buyers. But then also you have a vehicle that is more tech-driven, tech-focused, and feels a lot more mature, despite the fact that the color that we have here today would probably be more for someone in their 20s. Interior insulation-wise, even with the larger tires, it's not too bad here. You do feel the imperfections quite a bit, though, so it is going to be somewhat of a stiff ride. But again, this is a vehicle coming in at around $30,000. I'm not expecting anything different here. But I really do like the maneuverability of this crossover. It's fun, and because it's so light, you can really throw it around. When you're on throttle, it doesn't drone too much here. That's one thing I do like about this CVT. It mimics the gear shifts quite well. Best of all, for a subcompact crossover in this market, it doesn't feel subcompact when you are behind the wheel, nor does it feel like a lifted hatchback. You sit pretty high up in this crossover. You have a nice commanding feel and presence over the roadways, and this wouldn't be too much of a difference compared to a Nissan Rogue. In regards to the overall visibility being behind the wheel of this vehicle, nice panoramic view. A-pillars are somewhat aggressive. You might have some blind spots here and there when you are approaching intersections or red lights. Taking a look at your side mirrors, they are decently sized. I can't see what's in my blind spots and the lane next to me. And then looking out back, we have that hatchback-like rear fascia, so I can see what's directly behind me, even with the headrests in the way. But I really like that for a vehicle at around $30,000, it doesn't feel cheap in here. You look at the full digital gauge cluster, you look at the infotainment system, you have Sanchez padding on the dashboard, you have leatherette seat material. It does feel quite refined. And that is a stark difference from the prior generation, which is why I think that the Kicks is a great subcompact in this market. Now we are going to get on the highway here very soon to see what this 2-liter 4-cylinder engine has to offer. But I like the fact that it's very compliant. That you can hop into it, you can have some fun, it doesn't feel slow or lethargic. And best of all, even though it is somewhat boxy, it has a cool factor that a lot of vehicles that came before the Nissan Kicks just didn't offer. That's why I think it's like a modern Nissan Juke. Just needs a better engine though. So now that we're getting on the highway here, let's place the Kicks in sport mode and see what that does to the throttle response and steering input. See, it's right here. A lot of power. You know, don't let those horsepower and torque numbers fool you. This is actually quite a peppy crossover. Now in sport mode, the steering does become quite firm, and it gives you some sense of feedback. It gives you some sense of engagement, and that's refreshing. The only drawback here with the SR is that there is a lot of road noise. Now at highway speeds at around 70 miles an hour, there is a decent amount of road noise. That is the one drawback with the SR with the larger tires, that you're going to be noticing that a lot here with this trim. And that when you do go over the bumps and imperfections, you do feel them. However, passing slower drivers, it does a pretty good job there. And like I said before, it's a lot quicker than the numbers would suggest. One thing I will say though is that you can definitely feel just how lightweight the Kicks is. It doesn't have a lower center of gravity, so it does sway a bit if you are dealing with some windier conditions. Obviously, with the ground clearance as well, this is going to be a vehicle that is going to be capable and versatile, but you are sacrificing a few things here and there. So all in all, after this very quick test drive with the Nissan Kicks for 2025, the SR I think is the cooler choice in the lineup, although the SV I think is providing more than enough. I do think though going with the optional package for the SR trim is the way to go. You're going to have a bit more of the creature comforts and qualities you're looking for out of a subcompact, but then just keep in mind though that you're spending over $30,000. So that is one thing to consider here with this vehicle. But all in all, I think what the Kicks is offering for 2025 is a drastic improvement compared to last generation, and also I think this is very competitive with the Honda HR-V, with the Toyota Corolla Cross, even the Subaru Crosstrek, and that's why I think the Nissan Kicks was a home run hit for Nissan. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Nissan Kicks SR. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.